Chapter 5. How did you all like the Divine Comedy? Miss Carey asked our English lit class the next day. I stared down at my notebook, doodling in the margins. I hate class discussions, and being tired and a little hungover from last night doesn't help. It feels as if someone's pressing my eyes closed. I have to fight to keep them open. Isn't this about isn't this book about Satan? Asked some blonde girl I've never talked to before. Should we be reading about Satan at school? I deepened the familiar lines of Quetzalcoatl's feathered tail with my pen. That sounds like something Riley would say. Miss Carey nods. That's a good point, Angela. Can anyone tell me why we'd read the Divine Comedy in high school? No one answers. Miss Carey taps a leather loafer on the floor. Come on, guys, there are no wrong answers here. What do you think? Why are we reading this book? Because high school is hell. I stop sketching and glance over my shoulder. Brooklyn sits in the back corner next to the windows. Usually she spends class with her head on her desk, but today she's staring at Miss Carey, defiant. She stretches the chain that hangs from her neck between two fingers, and the gold ring swings from side to side like a pendulum. If we have to live it, we may as well read about it, she adds. Well, that was more colorfully put than I'd have liked, Miss Carey says, as the students around us snicker. I stop doodling and my pen bleeds ink onto the page. In the back row, Brooklyn flicks her own paperback copy of the book with one finger, sending it sliding over her desk and onto the floor. I shake my head, a little impressed. She really doesn't care what anyone around her thinks. Must be nice. Before Miss Carey can comment further, the bell rings and the rest of the students start gathering their things. Brooklyn winds her way through the chairs and desks. She walks past me without a word. Making a quick decision, I shove my notebook into my bag and drop behind her as she makes her way down the hall. Riley didn't mention the spying thing again, and by this morning, I'm pretty sure everyone forgot about it. But I keep wondering about Brooklyn, if she's really into seances and chanting and animal mutilation, or if it's all just rumors. And my biggest question, if she really was friends with Riley, why would she throw that away? Hey, I say. When Brooklyn doesn't turn around, I jog up next to her. That was funny, what you said about high school being like hell. Was it? Brooklyn shuffles through her bag, pulling out a pack of cigarettes. The entire box is covered in black Sharpie scribbles, so you can't even see the brand name. Brooklyn sides a cigarette from the pack and puts it in her mouth, unlit. We aren't even out of school yet. Are you doing anything now? My lame attempt at being laid back makes me cringe. Brooklyn stops, walking in the middle of the hallway, forcing the kids behind us to move around her. Aren't you one of Riley's? What does that mean? That she's collected you. Brooklyn fumbles with a gold ring at her neck, sliding it on and off one of her fingers. Riley likes new girls. She takes it upon herself to befriend the friendless. I can't hang out with both of you. Or I can't hang out with both of you? I ask. Brooklyn shrugs and starts walking again. Do what you want. It isn't exactly an invitation, but I follow her out the school doors and over to the bike rack anyway. What's with the ring? I ask, nodding at her necklace that Brooklyn grins. Souvenir from one of my lovers. She holds the ring up to the light, so I see the engraving on the inside. Carlton and Juliana, 1979. I wrinkle my nose. That's sick, I say. Brooklyn just laughs. Even before we reach the bike rack, I can tell which is hers. The vintage 80s one with the handlebars that curl around the rider's hands. Brooklyn painted it bright pink with flecks of black so it looks like a watermelon, and the handlebars and seat are covered in peeling green duct tape. I stand awkwardly next to her while she unlocks her bike, then loops the thick chain around her arm and starts to push it away. I've got an appointment, Brooklyn says. The cigarette, still unlit, dangles from her lips. Tag along if you like. I hesitate, but curiosity gets the better of me. Sure. I pull my bag over my shoulder and trail after her as she wheels her bike through the parking lot toward a sidewalk that leads in the direction opposite my neighborhood. When she isn't looking, I pull my cell phone out to check the time. Grandmother will be fine if I'm a half an hour late. Brooklyn takes me to an old service road past the main street into town. We pass a dive bar and an alley leading to an empty parking lot. Brooklyn stops at a tiny tattoo parlor and starts to lock up her bike. This is where your appointment is? I squint through the dirty windows. I can just make out the hazy shapes of a counter and plastic chairs. Appointment might be stretching it. Brooklyn takes the cigarette she never did get around to smoking out of her mouth and sticks it behind one ear. Then she leans against the door of the tattoo parlor to push it open. It smells like smoke inside and some sort of lemon-scented disinfectant. Brooklyn walks up to the counter and slides her elbows over the dingy vinyl. "Ollie, you here?" she shouts. She leans over the counter like she's trying to see into the back room. I take the rest of the shop in. The walls are covered with hand-drawn illustrations of rose and skull tattoos with nude Playboy centerfolds taped between them. Classy. "Hey, new girl." The voice comes from behind me and I jump, nearly tripping over my own feet as I spin around. Charlie is sitting cross-legged on the cracked plastic couch, a textbook propped open on his knees. In his rumpled polo and faded jeans, he looks as out of place here as I do. It's Sophia, actually. A blush creeps up my neck. "What are you doing here? Homework?" He motions to the textbook on his lap and smiles. A dimple appears in his cheek, and for a second I can't help but stare. His eyes shift behind me. "Hey, Brooklyn," he says with a nod. "Charlie boy," Brooklyn says. "Your brother's around?" "Yeah, don't think he's going to be happy to see you, though. He's got a customer at 4. "We'll see about that." Brooklyn shifts her weight to her arms, hoists herself onto the counter, and scoots across. "Hey!" Charlie pushes aside his textbook and stands as Brooklyn slides off the other side of the counter. "You know we have a door, right?" "Doors are for suckers." Brooklyn sticks out her tongue and disappears into the back of the shop. I hesitate, not sure if I should follow her. "Here," Charlie unlatches a gate in the display case, swinging it open for me. "See, we're not all heathens." "Thanks," I say, giving him one last shy smile. I make my way to the back to find Brooklyn. The tattoo parlor is cleaner than I expected. The green and white vinyl floors are cracked and peeling, but it looks as if they've been mopped recently. The entire room has a worn and laid-back vibe that actually feels kind of homey, like a familiar booth at your favorite cheesy diner. Red plastic chairs are scattered across the room, all covered in duct tape, with metal trays set up next to them. Brooklyn leans against one of the chairs, talking to an older version of Charlie, a guy who's tall and thin with dark eyes. A thorny rose tattoo stretches across his neck, and 3 thick metal piercings jut out from each of his ears like nails. "Come on, Ollie," Brooklyn's saying as I approach. Ollie shakes his head. "Look, I don't have time today." Brooklyn peels a strip of duct tape off the chair. "Santos isn't here. You can just let me use his equipment. I think I could do it myself." "You kidding? You're 16. Brooklyn smiles so wide I could count all her teeth in if I wanted to. "That never stopped you before." The bell above the door out front jingles. I glance over my shoulder as a college girl in a jean skirt and Uggs walk in, her hair pulled into a high ponytail. Out front, Charlie says something to her about Ollie being out in a minute. Ollie's considering Brooklyn now, like he's trying to decide if she'll cause more trouble out front with his customer or back with his needles. He comes to the same conclusion I do. "Just wait for me back here," he says. "I'll try to fit you in later." Brooklyn folds her arms over her chest, fluttering her eyelashes. "My hero!" Ollie groans and heads back out front, while Brooklyn leans against a chair half hidden by a curtain off to the left. Dozens of identical black stickers cover the chair, and the words "Santos" and the Raisinets printed on all of them. Santos's band, Brooklyn says, nodding at the stickers. "Isn't that the worst band name you ever heard?" "How do you even know these people?" I ask, sitting down in the chair. Brooklyn grabs a bar stool and pulls it up next to me. "I used to work here," she says. "I had a fake ID, and Ollie let me apprentice with him until Charlie ratted me out and told him I was only 16. "You've given people tattoos?" "Nah, I did mostly piercings. See this one?" Brooklyn pushes back her hair to show me a large safety pin running from her cartilage to her earlobe. "Did that myself," she says proudly. "You got anything pierced?" I shake my head. Brooklyn's mouth drops open. "Not even ears?" "My mom doesn't like piercings," I say. "And you, what, just let her make those decisions for you?" "Where are you going to get tattooed?" I asked, change the subject. "Don't know yet," Brooklyn says. "I was thinking of that snake thing you had on your hand a couple of days ago. That was pretty cool." "What's a codal?" "Is that what it's called?" Brooklyn asks. "You think you could draw it for Ollie?" "Sure, if you want me to." I'm flattered and my fingers itch to reach for my pen. Brooklyn narrows her eyes at me. "You know, you'd look wicked cool with an eyebrow ring." You think so? Almost unconsciously, I lift a finger to my eyebrow. Then, thinking of my mom's reaction, I push the thought away. There was a time I would have done it just to get a reaction from her, but it's not worth it now, not when things are going so well. Is it because of your little friends? Brooklyn snickers, staring down at the tray next to her. It's covered in needles, tiny hoop earrings, ointments, and inexplicably a cucumber melon scented candle from Bath and Body Works. I bet they think piercings are a sin. God, I don't know how you can stand the holier than thou crew. I thought you all used to be friends, I say. Brooklyn slides a needle off the middle table and holds it between two fingers. You've been talking about me? She asks. I shift my eyes away from the needle. It's thick, thicker than I expected it to be. They just said you used to hang out with them and that you changed, I say. Brooklyn shrugs, turning the needle in her fingers. Let's just say that after years of worshipping at the altar of Riley, I decided I want to have some fun. The fluorescent light buzzes overhead, casting a flickering yellow glow across the needle's surface. Be honest now, Sophia. Do you really want to spend high school praying? Because you look like someone who knows how to have fun. I think of my goth friends showing their fake IDs to the bouncer at Club Trash, or my last boyfriend, if you could even call him that, or who was more interested in his bong than in me. Last night, with Riley, Grace, and Alexis, I finally felt like I belonged. Still, sitting here with Brooklyn fits too. The duct tape covered vinyl and indie rock blasting from the iPod in the corner remind me of dozens of nights in smoky basements. I lift my eyes to meet Brooklyn's, and a rush of adrenaline spreads through me like warmth uncurling beneath my skin. I can't help imagining her threading that needle through my eyebrow, the bright pain as it tears through my skin. Come on, she urges, touching the needle to my eyebrow. I dare you. No, I shake my head. I really can't. It wouldn't be forever, Brooklyn says. You can take the ring out whenever you want, and your mom wouldn't even know you had it. I stare down at the rings, imagining how cool it'd be to have a secret piercing, to get away with this right under my mom's nose. I could even hide it from Riley and the others if I wanted. I begin to smile. Jesus. Brooklyn hops on her stool, then curls a hand beneath the seat, like she's forcing herself to stay put. You have to. I laugh, and her voice echoes in my head. I dare you. I lean forward, and the soaring, whooping feeling of adrenaline rises in my chest. I don't want it to go away. Fine, do it, I say. Brooklyn grins, the same wolfish grin that shows all her teeth. She sets the needle back down on the tray and picks up a cotton swab and a bottle without a label. Eyebrow, right? She asks, squirting clear liquid onto the swab. I nod, and she leans forward and dabs at my face. This is just antiseptic. It'll keep you from getting an infection. Okay, I say. Brooklyn tosses the cotton aside and picks up the needle again. Keep still or it'll be crooked. I take a deep breath and hold it, digging my teeth into my lower lip. Brooklyn moves in close to me, and I stare at her eyes to keep from looking at the needle. They're dark brown, almost black. I can barely see the outline of her pupil. I swear I feel the needle a second before Brooklyn slides it through my skin. It's nothing like the sharp, sudden prick I'd been imagining. This pain is slow. Nausea floods my stomach, and I have to close my eyes to keep from feeling dizzy. Shit! I hiss, letting out my breath in a rush. There's a pop, and I feel the needle slide through the other side of my eyebrow. I wrap my hand around the chair's armrest and force myself to breathe as the room around me spins. I feel strangely hot. It's so hot that I'm sweating, and now the floor is rising and falling beneath me. I blink, and it's as if I'm looking through a camera's fisheye lens. Brooklyn is close, but everything around her is distorted and far away. Are you okay? Brooklyn's forehead creases in concern. I stare at my knees, trying to focus on breathing. When I look up again, Brooklyn straddles her stool, and we're sitting so close that our knees touch. She holds the needle in front of her, and my blood winds down the side. The overhead light flickers. It's reflected in Brooklyn's black eyes and in the red droplet of my blood. Sophia, Brooklyn says. She slides the needle into her mouth, smearing her lips with red blood. Now you're reborn, she says, her voice distorted, like I'm hearing it underwater. The light flickers again, and everything goes black. The next thing I'm aware of is a weight pressing against my eyelids. My throat is dry and scratchy, and I try to speak, but the sound that escapes my mouth is strangled like a gasp. I force my eyes open, and light fractures and breaks in front of me, making me squint. Hey, Sleeping Beauty, how are you feeling? Brooklyn? I blink, and slowly my vision clears. I'm in the tattoo parlor chair. I'm not in the tattoo parlor chair anymore. I'm lying in some sort of office area, and Brooklyn is perched on the edge of a desk in front of me. Her shirt sleeve is rolled up, exposing a fresh bandaged shoulder. She removes a cigarette from her mouth and blows out a plume of smoke that curls around her. You passed out, she explains. My cousin's like that. He'd pass out from a paper cut. Charlie and Ollie moved you so you wouldn't freak out the other customers. Charlie moved me? I ask, feeling an immediate pang of embarrassment. Brooklyn nods. There's no blood on her mouth, no strange glinting light in her black eyes or manic smile. It was a dream, or a hallucination maybe. What time is it? Brooklyn pulls a cell phone out of her pocket and squints down at it. 6:15. Crap! I sit up, trying to ignore the headache beating at my temples. The office door opens and Charlie appears, holding a bottle of water. I grab my backpack and stand. The room spins and I hold onto the desk to steady myself. Feeling better? He asks. He smiles and the spinning immediately gets worse. Where's the fire? Brooklyn asks, lifting the cigarette back to her mouth. I just need to get home. Thanks for the... I motioned to my eyebrow, then ducked past Charlie and out of the office, cheeks burning in embarrassment. As soon as I'm outside, I start to run. My backpack digs painfully into my shoulder and slaps against my hip as I move. If my mom gets home before I do and finds out I left grandmother alone, I'm screwed. I try to do the math in my head. It takes me about 5 minutes to walk home from school, and Brooklyn and I walked for maybe 10 minutes to get to the tattoo parlor. Tonight my mom's class ends at 6:30 and she'll be home by 6:45. As long as I don't get lost, I should be fine. My chest burns and my breath escapes in ragged gasps. I barely notice the buildings and houses as I race past them, working and reworking the math in my head. I'm almost home. I'm fine. I'll be fine. I tear up the driveway to our house and fit my key into the lock, glancing at the clock in the hallway once I'm inside. 6:40. I close my eyes, lean against the front door, and breathe. I made it. Kicking off my shoes, I head down the hall and duck into the bathroom across from grandmother's bedroom. Her door is open and the red-tinted lamplight spills into the hall. I hear her wheezing breaths and the rosary beads clicking against her table as I walk past. You okay, Abuela? I called to her as I shrug off my backpack and set it on the toilet seat. Then I catch sight of myself in the mirror over the sink. The tiny gold hoop circles the narrowest part of my eyebrow, looking foreign and wrong against my dark skin. I lean in to touch it, cringing when my finger brushes against the purple bruise spreading across my skin. I glance over my shoulder into grandmother's room. She's sitting up in bed, her dark eyes staring out at me from the shadows of her red-tinted room. Her lips mouth wordless prayers as she counts the beads on her rosary. My breath is shallow, fast. I turn back around, wrapping my fingers around the cold porcelain sink to try to calm myself down. My reflection stares back at me, the tiny golden hoop twinkling above my right eye. Mom's car rumbles into the driveway and the engine cuts. In the quiet that follows, I swear, I hear my heart beating against my chest. I don't think. I lean in close to the mirror, so close I could count the number of lashes on my eyelid. I hold the tiny golden hoop steady with 2 fingers and twist the bead off. Then I rock the hoop back and forth, ignoring the blistering pain as I ease it out of my skin. Blood bubbles beneath my fingers. Grandmother watches me from her bedroom. The front door opens and slams closed. Footsteps thud in the foyer. Sophia? I let the golden hoop fall from my fingers and it clings against the sink, landing a half an inch from the drain. I switch on the faucet and it swirls down the drain in a whirlpool of pink, blood-stained water. Only once it's gone do I allow myself to breathe again. I'm in the bathroom, Mom, I call. I rinse my hands and look back up at the mirror. The blood is still leaking from the hole in my eyebrow. It's smudged across my forehead and cheek, crusted into my eyelashes. I unwind a length of toilet paper from the roll and bunch it up into a ball, holding it to my face. Beneath my fingers, the blood blossoms like a flower. Within seconds, the entire tissue is stained red.